Okay, so here we are, Music Theory 2. This is Module 9. You can go ahead and open your workbooks if you want to and look at the first page. This module is devoted to ear training. Ear training. You've got to be able to know what it is that you're hearing. It's very important to be able to read music. It's very important to be able to see what someone else has created and communicated with you on paper. But it's as important to be able to hear something and understand what it is, or hear something in your head and be able to play it and be able to respond. You can play the things that you know now, but the more that you can hear what else is going on, the more rich you can grab other colors, other nuances. There's more of a language that you're to learn when you can play by ear. So that's a focus of what we're doing with this module. One thing that ear training you have to understand is something that will not come naturally to you. It's not a quick fix. In fact, if you're looking for any quick fixes, I think we move a little faster than, say, music theory in college, but you've got to work at it. You've got to develop that ear. You're going to have to spend some time. So I'll reinforce this towards the end of the video, but I urge you to consider that you're going to need to take a bit of time, maybe even every day, to just work on ear training and develop this thing. So I'm going to give you some tools on how to do it in this class. So there's two concepts I want to talk about before we get into it. One is called the tonal center, and one is tonality. Feel free to interrupt with questions if you have it. If I'm not making sense, give me a holler, okay? Now, we talked about in Music Theory 1 about scale and key and mode, and those words all sort of meaning the same thing in my book. They are all a pool of notes that we agree upon, right? So if we say, hey, we're in the key of F, when I say F, it's implied that I mean major, and that means that I'm using notes from the F major scale, and because we've all been through that class, we all know that's F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. So those 7 notes are part of what we call the F major scale. So if I say, we're in the key of F, that's a shortcut for saying, these are these 7 notes that we're going to agree upon playing until further notice, right? Most of the song, a big chunk of the song is going to use those 7 notes, okay? So I would want to use a different term here to almost say the same thing but give you a slightly different meaning. The tonal center, if I say we're going to be in F, the tonal center would be F, okay? The tonal center feels like home, feels like we've resolved everything. Later, when we get to other scales, you'll find out that that same selection of 7 letters that comprise the F major scale is also another scale called the D natural minor. But the thing is, when you play in D minor, and it feels like it's home and resolve when you hit D minor, then D minor is the tonal center. When you create chord patterns and chord progressions that make you feel like F is home and that it's been resolved, then F is the tonal center. With me so far? Okay? But the tonal center can change over the course of a song without changing the key. So if we stay in our conceptual key of F, and we're going to use the F chord, the 4 chord is B flat like we learned in Module 7, and the 5 chord is C, and we're using those chords, and suddenly I play an E flat major chord. Well, that's not part of the F major scale. What's happened? The tonal center has shifted, okay? So the tonal center has shifted, meaning I'm going to play other notes around that E flat major scale, excuse me, that E flat chord. So when the new chord comes in that's not part of the scale, now when we go to improvise on top of that, or we go to do chord extensions around that, when we learn how to shift the tonal center in our analysis in our head, then we know what notes to play on top of that, okay? So tonality is sort of a related word. And tonality is all of the things that would surround the music to create the tonal center, in a sense. Okay? So let me give you an example on the keyboard for a moment. Here's our F that we're talking about. Hope you guys can hear that. That's an F chord, right? But if I just walked up and I played the 4 chord and the 5 chord, and I didn't play the F, by playing those 2 chords, I've established an F tonality, okay? Because And everybody hears in their head the chord that I need to resolve to is F, right? I've established the tonality of F by just playing B flat and C major. With me so far? So if I'm in the key of D major, for example, and here's D. D, G, A, D. I've established the D tonality, right? And here's my song. Now your ear's totally in the tonality of D. And the next chord I hit is a B flat. I've changed the tonal center. What have I changed it to? If my next chord is a C, I haven't played F, but I've actually set up the tonality of F by doing the 4 chord and the 5 chord of F. Let me do it without talking. Here's my D song. And then I hit B flat. And now if I play F, this feels like home, because I've shifted the tonal center in the middle of the song. Okay? Now, all of you worship musicians that are out there, you've probably played this one song over and over. And I was going to show you, and then I thought, well, if I use the song without permission, maybe they'll get mad at me, or I'll have to pay them royalty. So we're just going to talk about the song, because I can totally do that. If you guys know Revelation song, most of us have probably heard that. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. And we could probably flash these on the screen later. The chords are always, in every country in the world, and every church that does it, D major, A minor, C, and G. Now those chords could be considered part of the G major scale, right? All of those chords exist in the G major scale. So D major, A minor, C major, and G major. They all have one sharp in common. That's the G major scale, okay? But when you play that song, G doesn't feel like home. If you go through the whole song and you play that final chord and it feels like, we've resolved everything, it's going to be D. So your theory major friends are going to say, well, no, that song's in G because it's one sharp. And they're right on one level. But when you think in terms of the tonal center shifting, this is where the ivory tower music theory nerds in college would tell you that it's actually a D Mixolydian scale. But you don't need to remember that, because I think that confuses the issue. But there is a name for it. But D feels like home in that song. So I would say that the tonal center of Revelation song is D, even though it's implying this other scale. Does that make sense so far? Just a little bit on the surface. Okay? So tonality and tonal center are important terms. Does anybody have any questions about that for the moment? No, I'm going to build on it, but